Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rick Thoren, Thoren. I am the chief cook and bottle washer here. I want to say thank you to Tyrene for helping put this afternoon field trip, and want to welcome the Metuchen Edison Historical Society to the Danish home, or the Danish Cultural Center of Edison, New Jersey. The Danish home was bought in 1914 by the Danes who had lived in Perth Amboy. It was originally a 72-acre farm with a Victorian farmhouse that was located where 287 is now. This building here was erected in 1949 and opened in 1951. It was actually a working farm with fruit, vegetables, and livestock that they would work. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, you know it. And they would sell their produce to try help to subside the working of the facility. This facility that was built was a modern facility for 1951. As you came in, you have the kitchen, the laundry room, and the pantry. This here is the dining area, and that is the living room where people could sit. And this over here is the porch. Both wings were where the residents had their rooms. When you got sick of hanging out with everybody, you went to your room. Right now, the rooms are converted into our display area. So if you start out here on the east wing, we start out in 1914. We have documents, we have pictures of the old farmhouse and the outbuildings, some of our past presidents, and some of our current presidents. I'm still alive. And as we go on further down the hall, we have maps and placards of Perth Amboy and how and where the Danes have their businesses. It describes the businesses, it describes the addresses where they were, and you can see the location on the map. State Street and Broadway and Herald Square, but that's in New York. It also goes down, we have mock-up of storefronts. So we will take people on a tour. You can roam through the building. We have posters on the outside that describes Denmark and the different islands, all the islands that make up the nation of Denmark, and some of the reasons why people had left Denmark to come here to the U.S. to start new lives. On the other side of the hallway, we have our Brotherhood and Sisterhood rooms. There were many lodges that made up the Danish Brotherhood in America, which was started in 1882. We are now down to just a couple of lodges that meet here on the East Coast. So we have 6 lodges that are left. Today being Sunday, the second Sunday of the month, we had our board of directors meeting. So we have our delegates from the remaining lodges and our officers, where we go up into the conference room and we argue. So on this wing, the west wing, we have a mock-up of what one of the residence rooms looked like. It was just a single bed, a dresser, and you got a chair, because you had all the other amenities taken care of for you. Then it goes in, we have a maritime room where we have a model of the sailing vessel, the Denmark, which was donated. As we take donations, we are a 501c3 organization. And then we have a veterans room on the end. We also have a art room where we have some very nice paintings that were donated. It was painted by a Ilsgaard, this man from Denmark, and they date back to 1912. They are very well displayed. Also, the next room up is Dane. That's Danish Archives Northeast, and that's where we archive a lot of our old papers and all the junk that we find around here. Also, we have the veterans room. It's up on the end. Out in front here, we have our flagpole, but also a very interesting story. There's an anchor. If you notice the anchor when you came in, that belonged to one of our past members, Axel Monk. Axel Monk was a Danish sailor in 1940 when Germany overran Denmark, and his ship voted to turn around. Instead of going to Spain and delivering their load of oil, they voted to come back here to the U.S., where all the sailors dispersed and sailed as merchant sailors during the war. Axel was one of them. He had gone on to become captain of the Moore McCormick line, and when he finally stepped off the ship, the dockmaster asked him what anchor he wanted. He picked this one anchor. He had it in front of his house on Eggert Street in New Brunswick, and when he passed away, his daughters asked if we wanted the anchor. He said, yeah, sure, we'll take Axel's anchor. And I got a friend of mine in his tow truck, and we got it down here. We poured a pad, and that's where Axel's anchor sit. And he was a very active member of the Danish home here. Also down the back, we have a mausoleum, and that's where we keep the remains of our past members. So not only am I the chief cook and bottle washer, I'm also Rick, the crypt keeper. And none of those people down there give me any trouble. So this is, it looks like a general's uniform, but this is actually a Danish postal worker's uniform. And we have a picture of the guy who used to wear it. Here's Ove Krebs, who wore this postal uniform. This here is a 1915 telephone from Denmark that was donated, and it still works. It's still a landline. Yeah, clear the way. We have a tour coming through. All right, okay, we're good to go. Here's another one of my jobs here. I'm in charge of the dummies. I'm the head dummy here. Here we have pictures of people who have come from Denmark. So this is some of the ancestors that came here and some of the women that came here as well. Now we come into our first room. So here in our first room, this shows you, the first room in here starts out in 1914. And this is pictures of the original farmhouse, which is built around 1866. And there are pictures of people and gatherings from past times. And as like today, there were also, board meetings and discussions and trying to have funds and raising money. So you have to remember in 1914, there was no Social Security at the time. Here we have placards describing Denmark and how they came here to Perth Amboy. And Perth Amboy was a good gathering spot for them. We have a map here of Denmark, of the different cities, and, because people had come from, different locations. Okay, now we'll move up to this room here. And this, like I said, starts with the maps and the businesses owned by Dane in Perth Amboy. As you can see, they're on the right wall. There were different, Danish names and things that they had. So one of the big businesses, one of the big industries in the area here on the Raritan River was clay. So they would take clay, they would manufacture different things. Actually, there are some small statues and little knickknacks and whatnot that were made out of the terracotta. But also what we have terracotta bombs. And terracotta bombs, this is from 1918. So they're hollow. You see where they were hollow. If you look, you can see where the fins were. The fins were on the back, and they would fill them up with powder. And of course, you know, in 1918, they had these open cockpit planes, and the guy would just throw them out of the cockpit. And then with the powder would spread on the floor and on the ground, you could see where it was. So to make it a little exciting, they would stick some shotgun shells in there or something like that. We have pictures of old Perth Amboy on this side here. And this room kind of goes through into the other room we can get out through here. So if you come in through here, we have builders, contractors, and all their businesses from Perth Amboy, and of course artifacts from around that time. Different sorts of tools, hand tools, wash tubs, iron boards, and these type of special pans that are hollowed out. There's cast iron, and that's able skewer. And able skewer is a dough mixture. It kind of makes a cake. And also we have fricadella, and that's for meat. And there's the old waffle iron and clam rakes. And anybody want to step on a scale? There's a good scale. I tried it. It gives you a couple of pounds off. This room, of course, follows into here, and this is a mock-up of a store. And more Danish businesses and what they had to contribute to the community in Perth Amboy. And we have some recipes here if you're interested in having a recipe. Here we have a mock-up of a storefront, 1914, and this is the styles from down around that era. And this is conference room, board of directors room. And we have, what we have in here is we have some of the original charters from some of the lodges. Some of the lodges aren't even around anymore. But this one here is from 1926. And this was a Limbrook Lodge, Long Island, at number 325, which is still in existence to this day. New Haven, their guys barely ain't around anymore, but this was 1889. This was Brooklyn, New York. That's a little town I came from. And this was from 1905. And this is Mother Smollett, which is still here today. And this was 1903. And this is the messiest spot in the conference room, and that's where I sit. So now we're going to go back this way. That's John's office.
Right down by the river.
Yes, there you go.
That's, is that where the,
This here is the Brotherhood room.
they let anybody in this place.
Yeah, they will, right? How are you?
We have a couple of artifacts in here. This is the Thor Lodge, is the original charter, and this is from June the 26th, 1891. And over here, they used to have different athletic meets. So the Donnerbohr and Mother Smollett, Lodge 46, this is from the 2nd of June in 1912. This is from 1936. We still have, you know, our ledgers and paperwork and stuff. Dan Lodge is not around anymore. A lot of these lodges, you know, membership had dried up. And there's some of the old timers up there from the meeting upstairs.
How many members do you have in this lodge?
What's that?
How many members do you have in this lodge?
Well, we have Lodge 46. We have about 14 active members.
Okay.
Anybody wants to join, we'll give you an application. Because we need your dues. This is the Sisterhood room. We still have Freya Lodge, Lodge 36. They still meet here. And they have their teacups and the pictures of their meetings and their original charter.
Oh, I see there was a lodge in Newark.
Yeah, there was, yeah. They folded up.
Oh, yeah, there's a big display there, Lodge 84 North.
Oh, okay. So here's a famous accordion guy, Ernie Christofferson. He played the accordion. That's Denmark, Scandinavia is one of the countries that have accordion music. You can see Ernie. He had it. Those are not real diamonds, so don't try to pick them off. We have examples of documents. This is Danish Brotherhood in America. They were used to be benefits. They were life insurance that paid off. We don't do that anymore. Here we have Ernie's passport from Denmark and his certificate of citizenship and his U.S. passport. This was a famous place in Perth Amboy, which was Dana Hall. Dana Hall was on State Street, and that's where they originally had met. So actually the prince and princess showed up, and they had a big gathering in 1939 when they were there for that. So part of building this lodge, building this place was upstairs on the second floor. So over the kitchen there's a second floor, and over the living room there's a second floor. Over the kitchen, that's where the caretakers lived. So there's a stairwell that goes up. So they would wake up, come down, do breakfast, go back up, lunch, and then dinner. Over the living room, there's a meeting hall up there in the bar. And so with an outdoor stairwell. So instead of going to Dana Hall, I guess they gave the building up, and then they met upstairs. So that ends the tour here on this wing. Now we'll go over to the other side. All right. This here is a Hans Christian Andersen exhibit. Of course, everybody knows him. You know, he was a famous writer. So our one of our members here, Paul Malkow, he designed these, and so this shows you his travels. Hans Christian Andersen's his travels, what it was like at the time, where he's actually been, and some of the things that he wrote. Of course, you know, here's a little biography of him, and this here is a terracotta relief and a famous painting. And he also did, he did paper cutouts, so there's a couple examples here of paper cutouts that he did. Now I'll show you here, this is, I told you about the mock-up of one of the residence rooms. If you look in here, this is what one of the residence rooms actually looked like. So that's what you got. You got one little bed, a dresser, a closet, a chair, and there was no room service. Over here is a famous local artist at the time. Hey, what are you doing in there? John Otto Prank Peterson, who did all these pen drawings. So this is the Great Bed Lighthouse right here in Raritan Bay. I believe that's City Hall from Perth Amboy, a couple of churches. That brings us up to the maritime room, and this is the model of the sailing vessel, Denmark. And they had, somebody called up and donated that, and that's a square rig training vessel. And that's still active to this day. And they take young cadets on there, 14, 15 years old, and they literally teach them the ropes. Sorry. Hey, who's running this thing? Me or you?
No, you are.
Oh, okay. Right. And there's a big flag over here, of course, you know, it says Dana on it, and that hung up in Dana Hall. And this is our gift shop. I think Vibeke. Vibeke!
Yes, I'm the
Oh, yeah, those people going in the shop, they're stealing. Put that back. This here is another design by Paul Malkow. And he designed these posters here that corresponds with the coronation of the new King of Denmark, which is Frederick X, which just happened. His mother, Queen Margrethe, she abdicated just recently, and he was coronated as the new king of Denmark. So this starts here in 1912. These are the past coronations. 1912, 1947, 1972, of course, 2024. They're very well made, and they give you what's happening at the time in the world and what is happening at the Danish home. And there's also the family tree, who's related to who. And now we'll come up. Here's some more of my, what I'm in charge of. I'm in charge of the dummies again. This here, you see posters on the wall. This is called Grundlov's Day. And Grundlov's Day is Danish Constitution Day. It's kind of like Danish Independence Day. So, you know, they got a constitution together and they all voted on it. And for the democratic process, even though they still retain the monarchs. But we do have a big celebration here. We've been doing that for the past 3 years, so we'd like to see you all here next June. And here we have the different costumes from the different provinces in Denmark. So here is our last room on this wing, and this is the veterans room. And a lot of the guys who had served in the various departments of the armed services. Kenny Nielsen served in the Danish Navy, the Canadian Navy. He's pictures up there on the wall. John Hewlin was a Danish sailor. And this is the guy I was telling you about here that we're working on, doing research on him, is Axel Monk, Captain Axel Monk. And if you look out the door, you can see his anchor out there right by the flagpole. So here is Axel's anchor. So the story is, you know, Axel, he sailed on another square rigger as a cadet for the Danish merchant service. And he had graduated from there and he signed on to Caroline Maersk. The Caroline Maersk was hauling crude oil from Texas and they were going to Malaga, Spain. And when Germany overran Denmark on April the 9th, 1940, they said, bring the ships back. The captain, being a company man, said, look, I have to bring the ship back to German-occupied Denmark. He told the first mate, he said, here's the key to my cabin. You lock me in the cabin. You guys talk about it, what you want to do. So the old sailors, they didn't want to go. They wanted to take the oil over to the fascist Spain. And, you know, the old timers said, no, we're not doing it. And, you know, here's actually, he's 15 years old. You know, whatever you guys want to do. So they unlocked the captain. They said, okay, we're going back to the U.S. They turned around. They made a U-turn in the Atlantic. And they wound up going to, I think they went to Jacksonville, Florida, but they sailed to Florida. They stayed there. They didn't have any pay, they didn't have any food. But they wound up that, you know, for the war effort, the Allies needed merchant sailors. So all these guys dispersed and they sailed on different ships for convoys. And Axel, in the later years, because these guys were in the merchant marines, yet they were risking their lives, they did not get benefits as the guys who were in the military, and they had to fight for that. And Axel championed that, and they actually got benefits for the merchant sailors who sailed during World War II. And then when he went back to Denmark, the country of Denmark compensated these guys as well. And he helped a lot of fellow sailors and widows and stuff like that to get their benefits. So this is a tribute to Axel. Axel was an active member here at the Danish home. He was active in a number of different lodges, and he donated a lot of time here, like a lot of people did. A lot of the people that after they retired and stuff, or even when they worked, I mean, these guys built this place after they worked for the day. You know, they were plumbers, and carpenters, and masons, electricians, and they donated their time. And that's important to keeping any organization active. I talked to Tyrene about that, you know. And, you know, you need, you know, active volunteers. So that brings us out here. Now you can see the grounds. I don't know if you want to go down and see the mausoleum. Okay, come on, let's take a walk. It's a nice day today. So this is where our past members, the remains of our past members, are kept. We have a standardized urn that was made by the Copenhagen company in Denmark. And there's a dome on it, and there's a star, there's a constellation, I believe it's called the Seven Sisters, as there's 7 stars on it. We have tags on the front so we know who's in it. And actually, some of the past members had it in their will that they wanted to get commingled with their spouse. I can still hear some of them arguing. But it's a peaceful place. The first weekend in May, we all gather down here and we have a memorial service. So we have a memorial service, weather permitting, to commemorate the members that have passed and from the previous year, which is too many these days. I think we have more people in here than we have outside. All right, here's an interesting item here. This bell hung in St. Stephen's Church in Perth Amboy. And there were 2 St. Stephen's churches. One was Danish. It was a Danish church. And the girls, the women in the church, were not going to get married until there was a bell in the church in St. Stephen's. So they had cake sales or whatever. They did whatever they could because I guess the guys wanted to get married. So this bell, it's inscribed here. It was cast in 1900 by the Meneely Bell Company in Troy, New York. And it's inscribed in Danish that it was a gift from the young girls of St. Stephen's in Perth Amboy. And it's also inscribed in Danish on this side here. And the English translation is that Christ is risen, hear my song, it will ring forever, for this is my song. And it's when it had moved to St. Stephen's Church in Edison, which was on Pleasant Avenue off of Amboy, and now that got sold, so they offered it to us, and now we have it hanging here. So it's quite heavy, but it resonates well. It used to be electric, now it's manual. Okay, that concludes our tour down this way. As you can look upon the grounds, we have an outdoor stage, we have an outdoor refreshment stand. Up there we have an outdoor kitchen and a couple of bathrooms, and of course there's our utility garage. And this is what we're down to. We're down to these 3.5 acres, 4 acres right now. So now we can go back in the building and have ourselves a Carlsberg. All right, who wants a beer? Or like they say in Denmark, øl. Skal der have en øl, ja.